Not yet, but I'm tempted to do so.
Oh,
Maybe
that's
I'm going to do it one of these days. Sometimes I brood, think over the past many, many years, over a long lifetime, and think of one or two people who were a bit mean to me, and I sometimes think I can take my revenge on them. I'll write a story about them, but I haven't done it yet. I don't think I ever will.
A very good morning to each and every one of you to the QShala family quiz. And this is a very, very special edition for all of us. It is indeed my honor, pleasure, and I have to say, almost a dream come true to introduce to you my childhood hero author, Mr. Ruskin Bond.
Thank you, sir, for your very kind introduction, saying all those nice things about me.
Who was your childhood hero, or who were you inspired by when you started writing?
Well, I'd love to tell you because here he is. Can you see? Charles Dickens. Huh?
The first of the questions on our special edition quiz. Here comes, and your answer is?
Masuria.
And he says the answer is Missouri. Mr. Ruskin Bond, sir, do you think the answer is right? What do you think, sir?
Yes, true enough. I live in Missouri. Here I am speaking to you from Missouri. Landau, in fact, is a part of Missouri, which is where I live. And the boy who answered the question correctly, he lives in Jodhpur. It's a very lovely historical city. I've been there once or twice in the past. So good wishes to you and good wishes to Jodhpur.
Variations of answers that people have put in. We'll try to incorporate as many.
Sure, have they located me all over the country? Yes, various places where I must go to some of them yet.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, yes, Arnav. Yes.
If you were not born in Missouri, where would you want to be born?
Actually, I wasn't born in Missouri. I was born in Kasauli, which is near Simla, which is also a hill station, but a small one, an old military station. And I was born in a military hospital there. I didn't grow up to join the army. But where else would I like to have been born? I think anywhere in India, I'd have been happy to be born. You have to be born somewhere in India to be a citizen of the country. So, and I'll settle for anywhere, anywhere in the country. Thank you. I came to live in Missouri in the 1960s. I'd been working in Delhi, and I got a bit fed up of the job I had there. I wanted to go back to full-time writing, and I thought the best way to do that was to go up into the hills. And I think I chose Missouri for practical reasons, because, well, I wanted to be in a secluded place up in the mountains. I didn't want to be too far from publishers and the busy life of the capital. And Missouri was the closest to New Delhi, where I had my publishers and also friends. And it was only a 6-7 hour drive in those days, as it's even quicker now. You can take a plane. So I wanted to stay in touch in a way with the busy world of India, and at the same time have a quiet, peaceful life up in the hills. And I admit that I found I could write better and I could write more in this in the atmosphere of the mountains around me.
It's a 5-letter word for all of you to take a crack at the answer. Type in your answers and do indicate to me on chat if you've taken the crack at the answer.
Sir, the answer for this question will be Princess Diana. She had the unfortunate accident and died in this place.
You got the answer absolutely right. This is Princess Diana. Fantastic answer there.
It was a tragic accident, and actually I had a glimpse of Princess Diana a few years before that, because she was connected with the help that was being given to Tibetan school children in Missouri, and she visited this hill station briefly. A very beautiful, charming lady, very popular with everyone.
Thank you. Sir, also I'd like to add, I'm a big fan of Mr. Ruskin Bond's books, and I have been reading them since I was 5. And I
Thank you.
feel so engrossed reading them. I'm still continuing reading those books. Thank you, sir.
So, thank you for continuing to read me. That's thank you. And I had to put on my reading glasses. Now I can see you all better and read those the lines too.
Wonderful, sir.
Thank you. When I used to go to school in Simla back in the way far back, 1950, the small train, the mountain train would go through over 100 tunnels. The longest of them was the Baroque tunnel, which took almost 5 minutes for the train to pass through. So there were a lot of tunnels and brief. But the one I wrote about in this story was really in the foothills near Kalka. And I always sort of admired the men who sort of had to look after these little tiny wayside stops, in lonely places in the forest where there were wild animals like the leopard in this story. And here I wanted to show how friendly relationship had grown up between the Khalasi, the watchman, and the leopard that would occasionally visit this spot. And he would, in this story, he helps to, in fact, save it from an oncoming train in the tunnel. So tunnels were very much a part of my boyhood. And there's always something about a tunnel that invites mystery, or you want to find out more about it. It's like a cave. If you go into a cave, you want to go to explore it. Only tunnels, at least you come out at the other end. In a cave, you might not emerge from it. So in a way, a tunnel always has a light at the end of it, a light of, let's say, hope and freedom.
Have you ever felt that the story you wrote will not impress the readers but turned out to be one of your best ones?
Stories are about people. If you meet an interesting person, an unusual person, it sets off a story in a way. So sometimes my stories begin with a character, and then the character becomes a story, or I weave a story around that person. So a story should, I think, be believable. It doesn't have to have a moral or a meaning, but if it does have a positive end, and that's a good thing. So my stories are, on the whole, cheerful, and and a lot of them, I think, end on a high note rather than a low note. It's only the ghost stories that sometimes go down. But so there you are. And sometimes you're right. I've written maybe a story I didn't expect it to be popular, but it was, and it became well liked. I've taken an early story like you mentioned, Most Beautiful. I wrote that about 40 years ago. And here you are reading it now. And how old are you? 8, 9?
I'm 11.
11. There you are. So how lucky I am to have a reader 40 years after the story was written, which says something for the character in the story, who's helped to keep it alive. Thank you so much for your interesting question.
Yes,
and
sir,
the stories you mentioned were some of my favorites too.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a tough one. I think I know who that is. It goes back to my childhood or before, earlier.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. You're right, sir.
Nobody jumps up like that now when they're batting.
Sir, the answer is Ranjit Singh Ji.
Oh, wonderful. Yes, it's Ranjit Singh Ji. He was the king, the Maharaja, the Jam Sahab of Jamnagar, where I grew up. And at that time, of course, he'd already passed on, but his nephew, Duleep Singh Ji, was another great cricketer. And we have named after them the Ranji Trophy and the Duleep Trophy, which commemorate them. And Jamnagar, that's where cricket started in India, thanks to Ranjit Singh Ji, who played in those days for England. Later, his nephew played for India as well as for England. So That's cricket history. So that was very clever of you to recognize Ranjit Singh ji there.
When did you first get to writing from life during your early days as a child?
Well, I first took to writing when I was at school. Now, I was pretty good at essays and that sort of thing. But I was a bookworm too. I was very fond of reading, and I'd escape to the library whenever I could and read everything that was there. And so I was sort of writing stories even when I was in class 8 or 9. One or two of them got me into trouble, actually, because I wrote a story about my class teacher, and I didn't say anything very nice about him. And he came across it and tore it up and threw it in his waste paper basket. So some of my first stories actually got me into trouble. But I started at school. So my advice to school kids is, do write stories if you want, but don't put your teachers into them. Keep the teachers out.
Were your friends' personalities always an inspiration for your writing? Or did you ever try to reinvent their flaws or the qualities you wanted them to have?
The friends, yes. I'm a very realistic writer in a way. When I create a character who's based on a real person, as many characters are, he would or she would have the characteristics of that person, of that boy or girl or adult. Occasionally, I might make up a character, and it might be purely imaginary. And then, of course, I would give the character certain characteristics that would help in developing the story around him. Obviously, if it's going to be a scary story, then the main character would have try to take revenge on a person by writing about him in a story.
Yes, a mysterious friend.
Not yet, but I'm tempted to do so.
Oh,
Maybe I'm going to do it one of these days. Sometimes I brood, think over the past many years, over a long lifetime, and think of one or two people who were a bit mean to me, and I sometimes think I can take my revenge on them. I'll write a story about them, but I haven't done it yet. I don't think I ever will. I never had an encounter with one of them, thank heavens. Although I have in one of my stories described an encounter with a tiger, but that was fiction.
There is many beautiful forests, but many of them is getting destroyed now.
True enough. You're right. That's been happening over the years, and Uttarakhand is very fortunate in having a very large forest area. But you see now, with the country as a whole getting more and more urbanized, towns and cities growing, even villages becoming towns, there's a constant pressure.
How can we stop all these bad cutting of forests, deforestation?
Yes, we have to be more alert about it, write about it. There are social activists who also approach the government, who will, and create a public awareness about the dangers of deforestation, of too much, let's say, urbanization, and people have to live somewhere, of course. But I guess we must also think that wildlife and animals too have to live somewhere. And we need that forest as much as they do.
Thank you.
Good afternoon to everyone here. QShala, thank you so much. This actually seems so surreal, ethereal to be speaking with Mr. Bond. My question for you, sir, is I am also a classical dancer. So I read up somewhere that you want to become a tap dancer.
Well, I was a boy then, and I used to go to movies, and I used to admire the dancing of Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly and all these others. But I don't have the figure now for tap dancing or any other kind of dancing, although I do admire even a lot of Indian classical dancing. And when I was, as a young man, had to survive 2 years in London, I would go out of my way if there was a Bharatanatyam dancer or any Indian classical dancer. There were some famous ones in those days like Gopi Krishna and others, and I would really go to to watch them. Udiya dancing is also so beautiful. I wish I had been a dancer.
Yes, and
I dream about it sometimes. I can dream in my dreams. I'm dancing. Thank you.
right. That is so good to know.
I would like to know your views on how literature is dealing with success and failure in life.
The more I've read and the more familiar I've become with the works of great writers and how very often they deal with the problems of life. So one learns from that, in a way, because you learn to think, to look back, to, in a way, contemplate more, the more you read. Reading gives you an attitude, which may be an attitude of acceptance and of philosophical outlook, which you don't otherwise have, because if you're not a reader and your other interests, no matter how varied they are, you're missing out on something. You're missing out on an understanding of human nature, for one thing. And if the more you can understand human nature, the better you can deal with the problems of your own life. The more readers there are, the better the world would be.
Get your favorite copy of Ruskin Bond sir's book, and we'll put it into our frame. If you can all come on frame, and we would love to get a photo.
Lovely illustrations. I really like them. I do realize that there's so many would-be writers now, young people who want to write, who are writing, and who want to get published. And that's a wonderful thing, because it takes me back to my own boyhood and my passionate wish to be a writer. And it was rare then. It seems to be ambition today amongst young people to write and to express themselves in words and sentences and in language. Either, if it doesn't have to be English, it can be your home language, or it can be Hindi, whatever you're comfortable with. So do write, and don't be disheartened maybe with a few rejections or failures, because I had those too. So persevere. If you really want to write and you're confident in your ability to do so, persevere. Don't give up easily, and love your literature, love your books, love your writing.
Yeah,
that will make you a good writer. My name is Bond, Ruskin Bond.
Fantastic, sir. It was
better than James Bond.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir, for joining in for our QShala family quiz. Thank you, Mr.